Hey, welcome guys to our little tutorial on our little tower defense. Now, there was a few things that I changed up in a few scripts and things like that to get this working the way we want. And this little cube is the target. Notice how every single one of these just rotate and point at them, which is what we want. And I've got a couple. I changed the color on the second turret just to show that we can select between one or the other. And I made a small script for, moving the camera around. Nothing fancy, and you'll. Is that actually a mistake? Did it actually mess up? Oh, yes, it actually did. Huh. That's the first time it's ever messed up on me the whole time. Well, I guess I have to take a look at the code a little bit or so. That's kind of odd. Maybe it's the collision. But let's take a look at this. Let's see what we have here. Now we have our lovely scene here with, and we're going to go into 2D mode. But first we need to go down to our quad and see what's going on here. Go into the ground. Let's not go into the ground. And there we go. We have our collisions and stuff. And that in the center must be probably up a little. Probably wouldn't hurt. Go through the ground a little. It's not going to matter. Now let's take a look at the other one because I have a feeling my collision's off. That's why it acts weird. It's kind of weird the whole time I've tried to make this mess up and it didn't, but when I start recording it does. That's size. We don't need that. We need this part here. Okay, let's try this again. Yeah, it doesn't do it now. Must be the collision boxes. Yeah, collision boxes. They'll always mess with you. This box doesn't have the right tagging. That's why it messes up. But as you can see, I actually sit and try to click on something that I'm not supposed to, and it won't let me. So the way we do this is in a level master here. Now this looks awfully complicated. It might look familiar if you looked at my older one, but this is a more refined version of it. Now you will need all these because we're using lists, which you can use an array, but I like it resizable at runtime. That way, in case we want to spawn something in, do something else, or spawn certain buttons. Now I have this float money, which doesn't really do too much besides go up and down. When we build turrets and things. And this kid build bull. Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing with that. Is that the only place that I actually use it? Probably so. Actually, you ever want to know? Let's just cut you. And there's no red. Sweet. Okay, now here's the turret code. I changed it a little bit. I've got target, this. If there's no target, if it's not null, then we update. And then if, I'm pretty sure we just put it as a transform. And then in the exit, we just force it to be null. That way, in case there's something else in there, it'll pick it right back up. Or anything could exit out of there. It doesn't matter what it is. It'll reset it and cause it to keep going. Now, this is my moving script for the camera. Okay. Nothing complicated, just translating. Okay, at a set speed. But I have this right here is because I want to look down. But if we do it in a translate, then we got to do all this weird math. Which we don't have to because we can just have the camera be on its own layer. And then put the transform to move on this, which is all zeroed out to the height that we want. So that way we don't have to mess with any more code than we actually have to. Okay, so we went over that, went over this. Now let's level master. I have a static reference to it in case I want a reference to it. I've got a place object, which is where I'm going to be instantiating the prefabs at. It will float around. It's the little hover effect that's going across the ground. And I have a vector 3 for its placement, where it's at. So that way I can just adjust it however which way I want. I got a layer mask. You don't have to use this build key thing, but I didn't want to hard code like this into an input get put down X or 0 or 1. It just makes me able in the editor to change it. Now this helper script is just a simple build block, and we're just checking, hey, is there something in there that's got this name on it? If there is, false. If there isn't, put building true. And it's a list of buildings, which is a class. It's this class. System.serializable, you have to have that to see it in the inspector, and then we just put a game object and a cost. Nothing fancy. I mean, it's about as simple as it gets, and we need an index for it. Now this index is so that we can use it for buttons, so we can iterate through it without going like for I each or some weird code. We just set the index. Where do we do this? Right here. This is all the button does, is set the index. So that way when we set the index, it tells our update, hey, this is this code right here is to turn the placement plane thing off if we're over like the UI panel, like the bottom panel that we have right here, this, so that we can't click buttons and spawn something when we don't want to, when we're just clicking a button. And we turn it off and we just return. So that way we exit out of this update altogether. Now if we're not over it, it sets it active. The placement transform equals that vector 3. And then we just do raycast. You know, which this debug we don't need because, you know, it's just a debug message for what we need. And this is a basic raycast, range, the layer mask, and we're out and hit. We're outputting the hit. And when we do the placement plane, the placement value for the vector 3, it just hit dot point. And this is, we're just flooring it. The we want to go between units, 1 unit, so we just floor to int. Okay, the x, the y is just how much we want above the ground, which I just force it to be 0.02. And the z, we just do the same thing, the flooring it. Now the input, you know, this is the key code up top. the key code up top. Yep, this key code, which you can do in the inspector. It's like we did for the reload for our FPS shooter. If it's not tagged ground, then we call a function, which is the game object. No, the build, which requires a vector 3. Then it's the game object that's in the list. Okay, and see this indexer? That's exactly why we use the button to set this index. This is a game object, and then this is the cost for that game object when we go to build it. So we can do our own custom spawning, which, you know, takes these parameters, and if the helper, remember that helper script? We check the bool to make sure it's fine. If it's not, then it won't execute this code. That's why when I do, like, get over here and start going bloop bloop, and it won't go. My helper function is doing that, which is the simple thing. And I mean, it's only one find out of it, and it's the only one that exists, because that's its job, is to help with checking the plane to see if it's actually got something in it or not. Now, when you do these checks for like collision, you actually have to have a rigid body in the collision. It actually has to have a rigid body in order to detect that there's something there, and it has to be labeled like a weapon or so. I won't do it for an enemy, but I'll do it for a weapon. Kind of sounds weird, but I don't really care if the enemy's there. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to modify the code to do another string, but I just don't deal with it in this example anyway. So we go game object, spawn at the position, rotation, and I don't care about the rotation, so I just zeroed it out. And as game object, because we're caching it, which we don't do anything right now with it, but maybe later on we will. And I deduct the money. That's pretty much the whole entire placement thing. Very easy and simple to do, and we can iterate through different types of turrets that we want to build. Now, on the turret itself, the base object, I have the trigger in this script, okay? And I have it into ignore raycast. And then on the body, I have the actual collision that I'm wanting to detect for weapon. Okay, and I make sure it's like in a decent form, you know, kind of out, but so that way you don't get overlapping when you're trying to do game objects like this, because I'm detecting whether there's a weapon there or not. So yeah, don't your how good it works is based on how good your collider is. So that's my little placement thing. It's pretty dynamic. I mean, it's not like most people where I've only got one quad here. One quad, that's it. In this whole entire scene, there's no placement, planes, or anything else. It's completely dynamic. So if you like this, you know, kick that like button, subscribe, share, you know, do the YouTube stuff, and I hope this helps you in placement turrets or whatnot. But yeah, take care and good night, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.